Hi Noteboard Gamers and welcome back to Noteboard Gaming. I'm your host, I'm Mark. Now on today's video we're going to be looking at a game which comes to Kickstarter on the 19th of July. And it comes to us from Dragon Dawn Productions and the game is Beyond the Rift, a Perdition's Mouth card game. Now you may have seen Perdition's Mouth Abyssal Rift around. It's this kind of slightly different dungeon crawler with multiple boards that you use for various levels, and it's a really kind of puzzly dungeon crawler. I do have a review coming in the next few weeks of Perdition's Mouth Abyssal Rift and the subsequent expansion. However, coming to Kickstarter on the 19th of July is a card game, a combat card game if you like, a dungeon crawling card game based in the Perdition's Mouth world. And there we go, you can see the wonderful artwork there. It's designed by Nicholas Petraka, and it says here that Beyond the Rift, a Perdition's Mouth card game, is a cooperative card game for 1 to 4 players. That's right, you can play it solo or with other people, or even maybe play all 4 hands yourself. And it tells the story of what happened to the heroes after their events in Perdition's Mouth Abyssal Rift. So, I was kind of intrigued when the guys from Dragon Dawn Productions got in touch with me and said, hey, we got a card game coming to Kickstarter in July, would you be interested in previewing it? And you know what? I'm all for a card-based combat game because I think, you know, they offer some different dynamics. And when you look at the game itself, it says here that you can explore the land of Zanzibar through a series of short campaigns consisting of 3 to 5 30-minute scenarios. And when it says 30 minutes per scenario, it really does mean maximum of 30 minutes. So it's a short, snappy card game. So bearing in mind that this is a prototype, so some of these assets are likely to change throughout the production run of the game. You can see that it comes with 4 heroes. We have Elazabal, we have Eliza, we have Nifil, and we have Bastion as well. And each one is ever so slightly asymmetrical. That's really good. So from a solo perspective, you can play purely solo and you can try out each adventure, and trust me, some of them are harder true solo than others are. I like playing with Bastion. I played with all of them. I think Lisa as a pure solo player is particularly difficult until you get used to exactly how she operates. But the really good thing about it is if you're playing two-handed solo or you're playing cooperative with somebody else, then you will see that there's an interplay that happens. You can aid each other as the game progresses. There is a kind of a mat which tracks your the threat as well, and the threat will go up, and sometimes the threat is the deciding factor on whether you complete a scenario or not. And then there are a number of card decks. Each adventurer comes with their own cards, so you can see Bastion's card deck here, and there's quite a few for each adventurer. There are also some bad guy cards as well, which are these cards here, and there's a full deck of those as well, and terrain cards as well, which are those. There's an item cards. There is the response deck, which if you play Perdition's Mouth Abyssal Rift, you'll be well aware of that response deck and just how it can be your best friend and sometimes your worst enemy as well. There is a wound deck as well, because throughout this game you're going to get wounds, and the more wounds you get, they start to gum up your hand, and eventually if you get too many wounds or fatigue cards, of which there is also a deck of those as well, then you will your entire hand is full of either fatigue and or wound cards. That can mean the end of the scenario. And as mentioned, you're going to play a number of scenarios. Now there is a campaign that flows through the game, and with the demo version there's a full campaign. I played through it and it's really good, and it gets really challenging. And there are progressive difficulty levels as well, so whether you're 1 player, 2 player, 3 player or 4 player, there's 3 levels of difficulty for each of those player counts, so from easy to normal to hard, and that's really good as well. So not only do you have this wonderful dynamic of choosing different adventures, of playing true solo or playing 2-handed, 3-handed, 4-handed, playing with other people, you've also got the varying difficulty levels as well per player count, which makes for a really exciting and kind of involved adventure. So let me take you through how you play Beyond the Rift, a Perdition's Mouth card game. Okay, so I've set this particular game up for the first scenario, which is called Out Through the Side Entrance. I'm going to be using a sole adventurer, and that adventurer is Bastion. And his kind of asymmetric ability here is whenever he would receive a wound through an attack, I may return 1 card with an attack action from my discard pile back into my hand. And whenever I'm attacked and I don't receive a wound, I may discard a card with a shield action or a defense action in my hand to return a card with an attack action from my discard pile into my hand. So down here we can see the action point meter, and it tells you here each adventure can be slightly different how many action points Bastion starts with, and he's going to start with 6 action points, so I'll move my little token on there. I also have Bastion's deck of cards here, and as I say, each adventure has their own cards. At the beginning of the round, at the beginning of the game, I'm going to draw 7 of those cards out. Over here we have kind of the round structure, target priority and icons, and we also have the threat level here, and that threat is going to go up at least every round. Right, there are 2 areas that you need to be aware of. First off, up here we have the quest area, and this is where new baddies and new terrain is going to be spawned into that area. And then down here is the hero area, because there is an attack range, and each hero or each baddie can attack from a certain range. So if we look here on this particular card, we can see that this acolyte here can attack from a range of 1. Up here in the quest area, that's a range of 2, so they would have to be down here and engage with me in my hero area for me to attack them if I've only got a weapon or an attack with a 1 ability, or them to attack me. We can see here that this guard has a range of 2, so they could attack me from the quest area. Also of note on here is the kind of attacks that they give. That one means I would draw a wound card if it's successful, and that would also, I'd have to draw a fatigue card as well, and they can start gumming up your hand. Now, each scenario determines which baddies you kind of put out, so it tells me I start with, on this particular scenario, the out through the side entrance, I start with a guard and an acolyte in my quest area, and also to draw 1 terrain card, and it gives me predetermined terrain cards as well. So I'm going to draw a terrain card from here, and we can see this is rubble. So rubble on this particular scenario means I have to spend more action points to move bad guys down into my hero area. So over here I have my wound deck, so I can draw wounds from that, and the bad guy can draw wounds from that as well. I say these gum up my hand, but I can play them, but generally they've got a negative effect. I can play them to go back into my discard pile if you like. So for that I'd have to play that card at a cost of, it would cost me no action points to play it, but I would then lose 3 action points. So anything in this level here affects me. Anything down here affects the bad guys. So when I attack them, this modifies their stats that you can see at the bottom of their cards there. So that's a wound pile. They can come up my hands, and of course that's how you track how bad guys get attacked as well. And then here are fatigue cards as well. Again, these can come up my hand. And if you, at any point, if you have 7 cards and all you have is wound and or fatigue cards, and that's it, that's game over for you. But again, you can play these cards as well. So again, anything above here affects me. I could add this card to an attack at a cost of none, and then I would lose 2 off that attack, but that would get rid of that fatigue card from me. Or down here, at a cost of none, I could lose 2 defense or 2 action points. And of course, if the bad guy gets defeated, get fatigued, there's those there. Now here is the response deck, and I say if you play Perdition's Mouth, you're aware of what the response deck is. It's the modifier. So when the bad guys attack or defend, they have a base attack or defense, and then they're going to draw one of these cards, and that's going to modify it as well. So for example, on this one, this would, if this guy attacked me, he's got a base attack of 1. He'd drawn a 1 here, that would give him an attack of 2. I would have to beat that in terms of my defense to beat his attack there. And that's it, that's the layout of the game there. So as you can see, it's relatively straightforward to lay out. I'm going to deal myself 7 cards, I'm going to start playing those cards, and the aim of this particular scenario is to get through all of these terrain cards and get to the end of it. I have to clear the doors, and each door you have to kind of attack or clear with action points. Once I've done that in this scenario, that's the end of this scenario. I can then move on to the next scenario. So, okay, so on your first round, you're going to start off with the number of action points there, and you can see that Bastion starts off with 6 action points, so I've got my little marker there. Any subsequent rounds, you get that base back again, plus any cards you've got remaining in your hand from your previous round as well. So I'm going to draw myself 7 cards, so let's do this completely randomly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and these are the cards I can play this particular turn. So it's my go first, and I'll explain the round structure in a bit. This gives me an attack of 5. It gives me an attack of 5 or a defense of 4, and you can see there are dual use cards. attack of 4. That means I would draw one of the response cards and get that number of action points extra. That's a particular power. It allows me to choose one or two of the following. Same with that. Same with that one, and also with that defense there. So that's my 7 cards there, and you play these for action points as well. So each of these cards has an action point figure against it, which you can see in there. If I play that card, I move my action points down. The faster that runs out, the less chance I have of playing cards. So if we go here, the first round is the hero phase. Now, I say the aim of me is to this particular scenario is to clear through this as much as possible. The only way I can do that is by defeating bad guys. Unfortunately, if we look up here, first terrain I drew was rubble. Now normally I would pay whatever the engagement cost and action points is to bring these guys down into my hero area, but rubble means it's going to cost me 3 at any one point. So let's have a look. I'm going to start with 6 action points. And what cards do I have? So I've got these, and I may want some more action points. So I think what I'm going to do is, first thing I'm going to do is play this particular card. This is for a cost of 0 action points, and it will give me, so it doesn't cost me anything to play it, but then I will get additional action points based on what the response card is. And I'm playing that, by playing this card, it means I forego that 4 attack there, but that's okay because I've got a 5 attack and a 5 attack there, so there's a good chance I can actually clear this room if I'm particularly lucky. So let's do that and get some more action points. So we'll play that into my discard pile, and we are going to take the top response card here and see how many action points I get. So we'll flip that over and we can see, there we go, I've got an additional 3 action points. So that's really good. So that moves me from 6 to 9 action points now. So that gives me a good way to start engaging enemies. Right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this acolyte down. I could move the guard, he's got an attack of 2, but I know that the acolyte is going to go, if I don't get rid of that acolyte soon, he's going to raise the alarm, and the threat level is going to increase. So I'm going to engage him. Because it's rubble, although his engagement action point cost here is 2, because I've got rubble as my terrain card here, it's going to cost me 3, so that knocks me back down to 6 there, and that moves that acolyte into my hero area. Now I can play another action card. Which one do I want to play? Well, I think it's going to be this one here. So what I can do is I can spend 1 action point, as you can see there, to get a 5 attack on him. His base defense is 1, so he would have to score a defense of 4 or above on those quest cards to get more. What I could also do as well is, if I wanted to play my next action card on top of that, is I would then pay this particular cost to then play that card as well. So I'm comboing there, if you like. And there we can see that will play 10. I'm not going to do that, of course. Now, up here is my range. The range is 1 on this card. That means I can only attack them in my hero area. So I'm going to play that card at a cost of 1 action point. So go down to 5. Now he's going to try to defend from that. So here we go. His base defense is 1. I'm going to draw a response card, and let's see what his defense is going to be. So here we go. I'm attacking for 5. His base defense is 1. Let's draw a response card. It's a 1. So that means his defense is 2. So I've certainly kind of inflicted a wound with that particular card there, and you can see that my damage, when I inflict damage, it's just one wound card. So now we're going to flip over a wound card and see how that affects him. Ah, brilliant. So as I say, we go down here. He's got a base health of 1. If we look here, it says here that on this wound card, the damage I'm doing down to him, remember for the attackers, for the enemies, it's these down here, I'm going to do 1 damage to him, which effectively kills the acolyte, and that's good. So there we go, he's discarded, that's good, but I still have 5 action points left, and I still have a number of cards I can do. So let's have a look now at what other cards I've got. So bearing in mind that rubble means I've got to spend 3 action points, which will knock me down to 2 on what I've got there. If I look at this particular card, it says I can choose 2 of the following options. I can choose the same option twice if I wanted to. I can target, my hero can engage or disengage 1 enemy. So that means it's only going to cost me 2 to bring him down into my hero area. That's good. I can gain a response card plus 1 action point, and also I can draw a card from my hero deck. So I think what I'm going to do is, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to spend my 2 action points, take me down to 3, and then I'm going to use that to engage this particular enemy. So I'm going to drop him down into there, so that's that first one done. And then I think what I'm going to do, do I have any defense? I've got defense, I don't really need defense. I'm going to use the response deck to get more action points, just in case I need them on this particular go. Okay. No, I'm not. I'm going to target. I'm going to draw a hero from my a card from my hero deck. So I'll draw another card. There we go. Oh, that's good. And that is an attack. Yeah. So this one is particularly good because I can play this card after determining the enemy defense. So what you generally do is you're going to play your attack cards, the enemy will do their defense, and then whoever's highest will win. But I can hold that one back just a little bit, or I can get 3 more action points. So he's now down in my hero area. I think what I'm going to do is spend 1 action point, play that card. That's pretty good. That gives me 5 against his base defense of 2. Remember, I got this card that I can hold back, and I can spend 1 more action point to play it, but I don't have to play it until we determine his defense now. So let's have a look at this. He's down on there for 2, so he's got to get 3 or above on this response deck. So let's have a look what he gets. Oh, wow. He's got 5. So I can now spend another action point then, because I've got 5 there, so he's on 7. If I spend another action point and do that, that's 8. So move my action point down. There we go. And therefore, I do get to inflict a wound on him. Wounds don't always cause damage, though. Let's have a look at this. Oh, that's okay. So down here, we can see that he has got 1 wound down. He started with base of health of 2, so his wounds are 1. However, he's now only on a 1 range. His attack is -3, so he's on a -1 attack. If we look at these modifiers here in a bit closer, so this is his original here, and now he's taken this wound. We can see that he started with 3. He's now -1, take 1 off that, so down to 2 to engage him. His range was 2, that's -1, so he's now down to 1 range, so he can only attack from the hero area. His attack started at 2. Take 3 off it, so he's now -1 on his attack, which should make him fairly easy to defend against. And there we go. His defense was 2, -2, so his base defense is 0, and his health started at 2, and he's now -1 off that, so his health is now 1. So I'm down. Let's see, I've done both those cards. I'm now down for my final 3 cards here. So what do I have? I've got 1 attack point there. I can choose either one of these options. It says 2 there, that's a misprint. I should just read 1 on there. So I can use this card, spend 2 attack points to get either 7 defense, or a persistent bonus there, which would give me all heroes within range may add a response card to my defense. Or I can spend 2 on that to choose 2 of those actions, which we've had before. Of course, I don't have really any attack points, so I'm going to keep those for the time being. And now we're going to move on to the enemy phase. So I've only got 1 attack point. I don't need an attack point to save for my defense. We know his attack is going to be pretty weak, but my base defense is 0. However, I'm still going to have to play that card. So now we're going to move on to the enemy phase. So on the enemy phase, what we're going to do is we're going to draw one of these response cards, and that will tell you what the particular enemies in this scenario are going to do. Now, each scenario has different activation points for enemies. Excuse me. And as you can see, and as I say, bear in mind that this is a prototype, so I'm working from a PDF that was sent through. You can see, depending on what card I've got, pull off the response deck, and whichever bad guy I'm talking about, so here's a guard, they are going to do these particular actions here. So a -1 or 0 is going to do this action, +1, +2, +3, +4, +5. And you follow these actions through. So let's have a look at which draw a response card for this particular guard and see what he's going to do for me. So here we go. Let's draw this response card. And this response card is a +2. So if we go into here, we can see that the guard on a +2 is going to poison me. That's not good. So what does poison do? Well, in this particular scenario, what poison does is it takes a fatigue card and it's going to put that on the top of my draw pile, my hero pile. That means when I redraw my deck, it's going to absolutely come into my hand, and I'm going to have a fatigue card in there, which I could get away with. Fortunately, he's not going to attack me as well, which is really good. Now, if there were multiple monsters, they would attack based on the order that they're on here from. So if it was an Acolyte, Acolytes would attack, then Guards, then Boneworms, then Roticas, and then Chalene would attack you in order going down, depending on what response card you drew. So now we're going to move on to the spawn phase. So the spawn phase, what happens there is dictated by how many people are playing, so how many players are in, should I say, how many adventures there are, and also at what level the threat is at. The threat is going to start at 0. Every round it's going to go up. So for 0 threat, it says, if there's a door in play, do nothing. Well, there isn't. I have rubble in play. Yeah. Otherwise, discard all terrain cards, add 1 card from the enemy deck and 1 card from the terrain deck into the quest area. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to discard this terrain card, rubble. We're going to add a new enemy card into there. Oh, we have another guard, so he's going to go into the quest area. And also, another terrain card. And here we have Empty Hull, which does nothing, but I've still got to get to the doors because the aim of this scenario is to clear through that terrain deck. And that's it. Now, if I was on a threat level of 3+ here, then what would have happened there is I would have added 2 cards from the enemy deck and 1 card from the terrain area into there, so you can see that it progressively gets harder. Of course, if there are more people, then it will get harder from that, and that's the spawn. That's how it keeps going each round. You're going to start spawning new enemies depending on what terrain cards you've got in there. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the draw phase. And the draw phase is where I redraw my hand. Now, I finished here with 3 cards, and that means that my next round, I'm going to start with 5 action points, as well as 1 action point for each card still remaining in my hand. So that takes me up to 8 action points. So as you can see, you get this balance about kind of planning for future games, knowing that the future rounds, knowing that it's going to get progressively harder. Do you want to save some cards back so that you can build your action points up so that you can play more cards the next round? Okay, so I've got these 3 cards. Then what I do is I draw to my full complement. And for a single player, it's 7 cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you're playing with more characters, you draw less cards into your hands. So now I have a total of 10 cards, but I've got to discard back down to my 7. So what are these cards here? I've got another attack card, I've got a defense card, attack. That gives me extra action points. I'm okay for action points. Another attack, and another defense. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this card. So I've still got 9 cards now. So I still need to discard 2 more. And keep that defense card. Get rid of that one. And get rid of that one. So I've got rid of 2 cards from my previous hand. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards. We're now on round 2. And then that's part of the end phase there. So in the end phase, we would now look if there are any end phase actions that need to take place. Nothing else happens. So all that's going to happen here at the end phase is I'm going to move my threat up by 1. Things are starting to move forward now. So that's a round of how you play Beyond the Rift, a Perdition's Mouth. So there we go. That was only 1 round of the very first scenario on the easiest setting using only 1 player for Beyond the Rift, a Perdition's Mouth card game. Look, I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think that the fact that it says around about 30 minutes per scenario, and it really does mean about 30 minutes per scenario. As you can see, setup takes no time whatsoever. There's a real sense of kind of fun and building combos together as you're working your way through the deck, through your hero deck. As I mentioned in the playthrough, kind of determining whether you want to keep some cards back to build up your action points so you can play more cards the next round is really, really important. Getting to know the particular decks of each of your players and each of the adventurers is really, really important as well. You have these progressive difficulty levels. I'd say that was the easiest, the introductory scenario on the easiest setting for 1 player. I could have had 2 other settings settings and they're of varying difficulty if I wanted to, or added another adventurer and done a co-op version of that as well. And then there is the progressive scenarios where the more wounds you get will carry over to the next scenario that you take on, and therefore you may get 3/4 of the way through a particular campaign and you've got just too many wounds. So worrying about and managing and mitigating your wounds and your fatigue is really, really important. Knowing when to play a wound card. So yeah, you've got an overpowered maybe attack on there, but I'm going to play this wound card, which is going to knock 3 off that attack, but at least it puts the wound card back into my discard pile at that point. Or I get to put the fatigue card back into the fatigue deck, because wound cards stay with you, but fatigue cards you can get rid of. There are items that you can pick up throughout the campaign as well, so your adventurers will get progressively stronger throughout the campaign. For a 30-minute experience, obviously it can be longer if you're stringing the campaign together, I think it's absolutely ideal. In terms of what people may not like about this response deck, I know for Perdition's Mouth Abyssal Rift, some people really don't like the response deck. I really quite like it. I like it in lieu of dice, and for this game it works absolutely fantastically well. It provides that unknown element. For example, there have been games when I played and I put these really powerful combos together and thinking I'm going to kind of defeat a bad guy. I'm thinking maybe 6 is enough because that's all I've got here, and therefore they draw a +5 card. Now there aren't that many +5 cards in the deck, but it just shows you that you can never take it for granted. And absolutely things like defense from that, about what it does in terms of determining what happens on each attack phase for the enemy as well, is really, really interesting. It keeps the game fresh and exciting. When you think they're not going to attack, maybe they're going to attack, or when you think they're going to attack and they decide to poison you instead and you don't have space for yet another fatigue card, it can get really, really exciting. I think what they've done from Dragon Dawn for this particular game is they created something that really works fantastically well. I have an absolute blast playing Beyond the Rift, a Perdition's Mouth card game. It's exactly what I want from a dungeon crawling combat card game. It scratches every itch for me. I get a sense of exploration, I get a sense of adventure, I get a sense of battling, I get a sense of upgrading my characters, and I get all that in a 30-minute game, and that's exactly what I want. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this progresses through its development phase, and seeing what other scenarios can be adapted for it and what other campaigns can come in. I think it's going to be relatively easy for the community to make up their own campaigns as well for Beyond the Rift, a Perdition's Mouth card game from Dragon Dawn. So look, this comes, as I say, to Kickstarter on the 19th of July. Check the link in the description below. If you like card games and you don't want them too complex, you can teach this in all of about 5 minutes, but you want that real sense of adventure and fun and progressing your character through, then you need to go and back this game, because for me, I think it really creates a fantastic card-based dungeon crawling experience. So thank you very much for joining me on this journey through Beyond the Rift, a Perdition's Mouth card game. As you can see from what I've said, and hopefully from what I've showed you as well, it's a really exciting addition to the card-based kind of combat dungeon crawling genre. It doesn't really make a misstep in anything that it absolutely does. I enjoyed tremendously all my plays with it so far, and I can't wait to continue to explore the campaign and try various combinations of various characters as I'm playing two-handed solo as well as true solo as well. As a solo gamer, I think it's ideal for just those kind of when you've got 30-40 minutes, you don't know what to do, you're going to set it up in a couple of minutes and just have a cracking time playing it. So as I mentioned, Kickstarter on the 19th of July. Check out the link in the description below. Make sure you go check out the page, check out the other videos, because I think this is an absolute cracker and it really deserves a place in many people's collections. So that's Beyond the Rift, a Perdition's Mouth card game by Dragon Dawn Production. Thank you very much for joining me on this journey. My name's Mark. This is Not Board Gaming. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out our other videos. And one final thought. If you can't find anyone else to play with, there's nothing wrong with playing with yourselves. Until next time, bye-bye.